What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this past week we got this huge, much anticipated release in Black Myth Wulong. And of course, since I'm making this video, it'd be super weird if I was like, hey, we got this huge video game and I didn't play it. Of course I played it, and of course I'm making this video because I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. Black Myth Wulong was developed by Game Science, a mobile game developer, and this was actually their first attempt at a full AAA video game release. And this game, to say it's been hyped for years would be a huge understatement. People have been drooling to get their hands on this game. It's been hyped for so long, and people have been talking about it for so long that I was starting to think that we were never gonna get it and that we were never gonna actually get to play it. But luckily last week we finally did get to play it. Well, I should say, if you play on PC or PS5, you got to play it. They announced back in June that the Xbox version was gonna be delayed to quote unquote better optimize the game on that platform. And we have yet to see an update on that release, at least as of me recording this. And Black Myth is based on the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West. The monkey main character that you play as in Black Myth is apparently based on the character of Sun Wukong from the novel. I say apparently because I've not actually read the novel. I have heard that it was required reading for some in high school, but I went to public school in Indiana. If it wasn't Grapes of Wrath, we weren't reading it. I play Black Myth on my PlayStation 5. I had heard some people were having minor performance issues on PC, so keep that in mind if you play on PC. They have come out since, Game Science has come out since and said that they are working hard to clean up those performance issues, but if you play on PC, that's going to be an issue, at least for the time being. And I will be honest, I haven't got to play this game as much as I would have liked, so this video is just going to be my first impressions, not my full review. Now, I will say that I've played roughly 20 hours, so I have played a decent chunk of this game. And again, I haven't read the novel this game's based on, so if anybody has read Journey to the West, let me know in the comments below if it's true the source material or not. But as far as the story was concerned, it definitely felt like a Soulsborne game in the way that they told the story. Those games have a story, but they tell it in a way that they don't force feed it down your throat like a lot of games do. If you want the lore, it's definitely there for anyone willing to kind of pay attention and work for it. But you could easily play those games and Black Myth for that matter for just the cool bosses and never know what's truly going on. And that's kind of how I felt about Black Myth, at least my time playing the game. Of course, I had a general idea of what was going on, but I'm sure that there was some nuances I was missing, mostly because I haven't read the source material, but also because I didn't feel like I was emotionally invested in the game, even though I do think it's a really cool game. Again, I haven't actually beaten the game, so maybe that changes. I have heard that there are multiple endings, so I am excited for that. Maybe if I do get emotionally invested in the story eventually, maybe I will try to replay it if and when I get more connected. Right now, I am all about this game, and that's because I'm really digging the atmosphere and combat. A lot of people assumed, myself included, by the gameplay footage we had seen, that Black Myth was going to be a Souls-like game. In a way, it's very similar to like Lies of P, Jedi Survivor, etc. A lot of these games that have come out recently have clearly been inspired by Soulsborne games, but don't fully embrace that type of gameplay and that type of storytelling. You have big, difficult bosses where you need to learn the moves, dodge, and punish them accordingly in Black Myth. All that, of course, is based on your stamina meter like you would have in a Soulsborne game. Perfect dodges are rewarded with extra focus. You have heavy and light attacks. Successful attacks also build up your focus. And once you have enough focus, you can release really powerful attacks. You also have spells you can cast, assuming you have the mana to cast it. Among others, you have a spell that freezes enemies in places so you can hit them with a long combo. You have another one that sets a decoy to distract your enemy while you sneak around as a projection. You also acquire more spells as you progress in Black Myth. There are a cooldown in addition to having mana, so you can't just be spamming a spell the entire time. So you definitely need to be strategic on when and how you use your spells. You also have multiple stances that can be switched out on the fly. I will say, I wish there was a little bit more depth with the stances. They don't feel that much different, and I never really care to like move around and try to switch them out and see if one fights better against a certain boss or not. I honestly just kind of picked my favorite stance, which was the pillar staff stance, and I kind of just stuck with that most of the game. I liked that stance personally because it felt like it helped me avoid some attacks, not all attacks, mostly just ground attacks, and it felt like it had better range. Your character also has the ability to transform into different enemies you have defeated along the way. Some of these transformations are for an extended amount of time, while most of them are just an instance to kind of pull off a particular move. These transformations are like the spells on a cooldown, but unlike the spells, do not cost mana to pull off. And once I get the hang of the transformations, I really like them. It gives you just another tool in your tool belt while you're fighting a boss. One of my minor critiques of Black Myth, yes, you can mix light and heavy attacks for cool combos, but after a while, it does feel like you're kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. So little things like the transformations are kind of a breath of fresh air to the combat. Plus, finding more transformations give you an extra incentive to explore a bit more. Much like a Soulsborne game, there are these mandatory bosses that you have to beat to continue the story, but there are also a lot of mini bosses that can be skipped entirely. There's NPCs that you have to interact with to unlock some boss fights. So the more exploring you do and the more NPC side quests you do, the more bosses you defeat, the more transformations you will have available. And all of these spells, stances, transformations, etc. can be upgraded in a fairly straightforward skill tree. I say straightforward. If you've played God of War, you know how this skill tree works. Speaking of bosses, there are an absolute shit ton in Black Myth. Again, I expected this to be kind of a Soulsborne game wrapped in this Journey to the West wrapping. But at the end of the day, that's not really what Black Myth is, even though it is clearly inspired by those games, because in those games, of course, there are a lot of boss battles as well. The Soulsborne games literally are known for their difficult boss battles. But in those games, you usually only fight a boss after making your way through a dungeon of sorts. Black Myth, you will literally fight a boss, walk 10 steps, and you'll run into another boss. Now, if I'm being honest, most of those bosses will be nothing to write home about. There were several times where I just thought I was coming up against a regular enemy until I got close enough that that health bar and name popped up at the bottom, and they kind of fought like a regular enemy. Like they weren't that much stronger than a lot of the regular enemies that I was coming across. And I have heard a few people struggle with this game, but honestly, and I'm not considering myself an expert at these games by any means, but I think that if you've cut your teeth on these types of games before, you will have no problem with about 75% of the so-called bosses in this game. I honestly didn't really run into any issues until about halfway through the game. I will give them credit though. Once I hit a wall, that wall hit me hard. So I'm definitely not sitting here and saying that I cruised through this game by any stretch of the imagination. I don't claim to be a master at these games by any stretch, but it certainly wasn't as hard as I expected it to be. Honestly, the biggest issue I came across during the boss battles is the camera was just a pain in my ass. It wouldn't always cooperate during these boss battles, and it would get stuck at these weird angles. It felt like during the worst times in these fights, there were multiple times where I literally could not see where the boss was or what they were doing. And there were countless times where I died because the one big move, every boss has that one big move that you're just like, I don't know how to stop this, so I just get away when I see them do that move. It felt like every boss fight that I came across, the camera would just fuck up right when that boss was pulling off that move that I was looking for and that I was afraid of. So of course I died because of the stupid camera angle. And for some reason, there's no map in Black Myth, which I thought was a really strange choice. I actually found myself, because I've played so much Elden Ring recently with the DLC coming out, I found myself hitting the button for the map in Elden Ring just as this reflex and being disappointed every time I remembered that this game doesn't have a map. I will give them credit. Black Myth does have this really seamless fast travel system, and that fast travel menu will mark certain locations that have important NPCs so you don't have to remember where they are, so you can fast travel right to them. That's nice, but it's no substitute for a good map. I'm definitely somebody that gets turned around and lost in video games a lot, so I tend to lean on my map not to get lost. And so when I don't have one, it makes me less likely to explore as much. And I like to explore in these types of games. And unfortunately, I am sad to report that even though there are plenty of side content, there's also a lot of annoying invisible walls. And I mean literal invisible walls. I'm not saying literally for effect. I mean, there are literally invisible walls in this game where your character clearly can jump over a rock and the game doesn't let you go any further, which really bums me out because I wanted to explore more, because this game is really cool and it looks amazing. The creature design in this game is awesome, but also the environments are beautiful. The game is broken down into six different chapters, and each chapter has its own unique environment. One chapter you're fighting in this dense forest, and the next you're fighting in this harsh desert. And every time I beat a chapter, I was really excited to see what the next cool environment was going to be. And there was also a lot of smaller details that I noticed that really impressed me. So you are this monkey warrior who fights with this long staff. So a lot of times when you kind of run across an area, you're kind of dragging your staff behind you. So when you're running through the desert or snow, your staff will kind of leave a trail behind you. I know it doesn't sound like much, but in 2024, video games have come a long way. It's that attention to detail that really impresses me more than anything nowadays. Again, I did play this on PlayStation 5 because I did hear that Black Myth has had some performance issues on PC, but I cannot speak to those because I didn't run into any issues. Well, I shouldn't say no issues, because the game did crash on me once, but that was it. I've literally had no other performance issues to speak of. I just loved this game's personality in general, but I also just dug the music as well. You literally come across a headless monk who sings you a song that I could not help but dance to. It's an absolute banger. So kind of wrapping up, I do have this weird rule about not giving a star rating for a game that I haven't beat yet, and maybe it doesn't matter and nobody cares, but I am going to keep to my rule and not give this an official star rating yet. But as you probably imagine, I did have some minor nitpicks here and there, but I've been really enjoying this game. It did take me a minute to get into it, but I think that was more of my expectations going in of it being a Soulsborne game. I haven't got to play this game as much as I wanted to, so I've been real busy at work, and it wasn't until Friday that I really got to sit down and play it. I had taken the day off from work, and I sat down and I basically just played the shit out of this game all day. So my wife comes home from work, and we go to walk the dogs as we do every night, and we're kind of just chit-chatting about this game, and I felt like I was way more negative about it. It wasn't until that Saturday when I woke up and I started playing it that it really started to click to me. It was literally just because I wanted it to be Elden Ring. I wanted it to be a Soulsborne game. And while it has the DNA of those games in it, Black Myth Wukong is kind of just doing its own thing as well. And so once I embraced it for what it was and not for what I expected it to be, I've been really enjoying it. I have heard some Game of the Year talk for Black Myth, and I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet, but it's a really good game, and I certainly wouldn't hold up my nose if it does win at the end of the year. But as always, those are my thoughts on Black Myth Wukong. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Of course, if you made it this far, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. It's just a quick and easy way to tell YouTube that you enjoyed this video, and they should push it to other people that might enjoy it as well. Of course, if you did enjoy this video and you haven't yet subscribed, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related content, so if you like that type of content, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. I plan on making my Star Wars Outlaws review, so this video just with Star Wars Outlaws next week. So if you want to check that out, make sure that you're subscribed and you ding that bell. But until that video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy. And we were just talking, and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?